Now entering the truth zone, deep into the vortex of the information revolution with your host, Michael B.
My name is Michael B, and this is the Truth Zone. Deep into the vortex of the information revolution, coming to you live on the first full day of summer 2017. And it's absolutely gorgeous out here in North Dallas. So today is part 2 of the NWO, the New World Order elites are indeed Satanists. And we talked about what CERN is, which again, for those of you that did not listen yesterday, it's the European Organization for Nuclear Research. Physicists and engineers are probing the fundamental structure of the universe. They use the world's largest and most complex scientific instruments to study the basic constituents of matter, the fundamental particles. Well, as we established yesterday, they don't stop there. They're actually developing antimatter, and what they want to do is that they want to create a portal to go into and receive information and power from another dimension or dimensions. And as we know, there are many dimensions, right? We know that there are many spheres of heaven. The Apostle Paul talks about it. That's why he always referred to it as the heavens, because there are degrees or spheres of heaven. We know that God, the Most High, see, that's not an accident, the Most High, because He is at the highest sphere. And Jesus Christ sits at His right hand, and basically, as I believe it's in Revelation, if it's not in other works like of Peter and whatnot, that actually after the crucifixion and rising from the dead, Jehovah God handed Jesus the keys to the kingdom and said, you've got the football. You're gonna judge. You're gonna decide who comes in and who doesn't. But Jehovah still has the appointed time of when action is to take place. And we can debate all day long about what that's going to look like. And we can debate all day long if Christ came or not. Again, I'm not even, that's a whole other ball game. But we're going to continue on with CERN and how they're using giant magnets and other instruments to tap in to antimatter. And, it's no accident that in order to summon Antichrist energy, and we'll leave it at that, Antichrist energy, you would have to use antimatter. It is no coincidence that on the human level, mankind is going into an anti-natural state. I was talking to my wife this morning about, I said, hey honey, good morning, it's going to be a great day. Oh, it's hot and we're surrounded by concrete, because basically the whole Dallas area we're losing our ranches, and all these commercial properties are coming up, more home developments, more apartment complexes are coming up, and how she was in Oregon last week on business, opening up another part of her business, and she loved the trees and the forest, and she went to see waterfalls, and how it would be great to be in that kind of a scene. And I mentioned how our little fruit tree's doing, and her father, who lives in Northern California, has an incredible garden, and he could live off it. All he'd have to do was get meat. I mean, he's got just incredible amounts of fruit trees and vegetables. Really, he could be self-sufficient in that way. And of course, she said, he has the climate, we don't. Yes. And then I interjected, yes, too bad the liberals ruined California. Just, well, Oregon has basically, the same kind of atmosphere. I said, yeah, well, they're a libtard state too, because they've put on a third gender. They're approved of it on driver's licenses. And of course, we get into this discussion about how I have not evolved and how I fight the world. And I said, well, yeah. I said, I'm not going to evolve into accepting a perverted state, and really not just Oregon. I mean, a perverted state of thinking. I'm not going to accept a perverted society. So yeah, I'm resisting the world. Why wouldn't I? Why would I compromise everything I believe in just to be part of the pack? And of course she says, well, you're doing that out of fear. And well, I mean, that's okay. That's okay to have that opinion. It's fine. But no, it's not out of fear. It's out of my faith. It's out of common sense. Nature is nature. God made it that way. There's two genders. Sorry. There's male and female. Oh, well. Either you're normally a girl is an XX and a man is an XY. And yes, there's the XXY and the XYY anomalies, which have been proven does not cause homosexuality. Yes, a woman can have more masculine qualities, and she could be also sterile. An XXY man, well, the XYY woman could be more masculine, and the XXY, the man can have some feminine traits, more breast tissue. He also could be sterile, low sex drive, but that doesn't equal a new gender, okay? It doesn't equal a third, fourth, fifth, and 20th gender. That's nature. And, a man can transform himself into a woman and vice versa. And now it looks like men can actually lactate, grow breasts, and breastfeed a child. Well, yeah, but that is through a man-made, fabricated manipulation of nature. It's artificial. It's fake. I mean, no matter how you slice it. I don't care what the transformation looks like or what that person thinks they are. It's a false, anti-natural situation. Man playing God, as we talked about yesterday, Genesis 3:22. He thinks, these elitists think that they can make up their own decision. They can put God in their image, which is really a reflection of themselves, and then justifying their lifestyle. But it's fake. It's fake and it's artificial, and it's man-made, manipulated. There's no getting around it. There's no fighting that. It's just the truth. See, and all of that anti-energy, that anti-thinking, it's all anti-God and it's anti-nature. Period. When you break it down, that's what it is. And on the political level, liberals, calling themselves liberals, that are really communists, fighting the Constitution, fighting the American way, really fighting freedom. They are anti-America. They're anti-Constitution. They're anti-natural rights. People that want to shut you down, get you fired from your job, get you taken off of the internet, simply for having your views and your ethics and morals. That's anti-freedom, right? It's all anti-energy. Well, who is the king of the anti? Satan, the devil. And that's what it comes to. And that's why I say, when you clear out all the smoke and all the mirrors, all the deflections and distractions, clear it out. You are either on the side of the cross or you're against the cross. Okay? You are either pro-Christ, pro-God, pro-nature, pro-logic, or you are anti-God, anti-Christ, anti-nature, anti-logic. That's it. That's balls to bone. And that is something that we have to pass on to our children. You're either with the cross or you're against the cross. If you're with it, then you cannot be part of this world. Now, that doesn't mean you hide in the woods someplace. As the Apostle Paul explained in 1 Corinthians, you have to interject yourself into the world, but there's a limit. He also said, in your congregation, also known as your inner circle, you have got to be very picky. You've got to be very picky who you let into your inner circle, who you let into your congregation, and who you associate with on a deep, personal level. Professionally, it is what it is. And some of you are in a position to decide, well, I'm not going to do a same-sex marriage. I'm not going to bake a cake. And quite frankly, and that's a whole other show, the 14th Amendment protects both sides of it. The 14th Amendment, well, as passed, as advocated by the Supreme Court in their recent decisions, two people of the same sex can get married. Well, also under the Equal Protection Clause, I have a right to not participate in whatever capacity I don't want to, period. But in your inner circle, you've got to be picky. And by the way, Paul doesn't give exemptions. Well, if your son is a complete reprobate, don't worry about it. Or your spouse is your spouse, and there's rules of engagement for that in chapter 7, and it also says your spouse will be saved. But you don't have to play part of the program. If they're into perversion, if they're into things, you don't have to be into it. You can separate yourself from that. And that goes for cousins, parents, aunts, and uncles. There's no exceptions on who is in your inner circle. And you can go to church alone. If you have a spouse that's not into it, you can go by yourself. So your inner circle can still be one of Christian purity, if that's possible. But Paul makes it clear. And he doesn't give exemptions. So, yeah, I'm not part of this world. I'm part of it as I have to live in it to some capacity, but I have a limit. And it's not out of fear. It's not out of anger. It's not out of lack of evolution, because it's de-evolution. We're devolving back into caveman times. If you think about it, now it seems to be okay to burp and fart in front of a woman. It's okay to just take a seat and not give it up to a woman. It's okay to just walk into a door and have it closed in a woman's face behind you. That seems to be acceptable now. That's what they did in caveman times. There wasn't etiquette. So for those of you that have adopted the New Age dogma, the 21st century idiisms, and you think that's evolution, no, you're devolving, actually, back into the Stone Age. Which is why the elites love Islam so much, because they're still stuck in the Stone Age. And that's, I've talked about that 5-part series. You could check that out. You can check out my 5-part series on Islam and the religion of Satan and what they do. So, yeah, I have a very limited role in the world, and no, I will not accept antichrist, anti-natural philosophies and ideologies and religions that are antichrist. And the Bible makes it clear. I want to share some verses with you about being like the world. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride in possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Now, what I believe this to mean, the world is passing away, doesn't exactly mean, to me, literally, the world is on its way of blowing up. I believe what that means is the world as it looks now is ever changing. It's passing away. So, and I believe that there's going to be a mass correction back to morality and ethics, and I believe that Christianity or Christ will ultimately win. Even though we're looking uglier and uglier, I believe we will reach a tipping point where we will return. And I believe that the Republic of America will return. The globalists at some point in time will be defeated because evil only lives for a short time. So I believe that when it says the world is passing away, what I want to believe in is that the state of the world as we see it today in 2017 is passing away. But those that are on the side of the cross will remain forever. And that could be future generations down the line that will see the actual convergence back to as close. We'll never have that. I mean, unless there's direct intervention by Christ, the second coming that's talked about, we'll never have a Christian utopia on this earth. There's always going to be a resistance, a pushing. But I do believe that there will be a tipping point where things will be better than they are bad. I believe there's going to be more of a Christian influence, especially in this country, like there was, as opposed to the way it is now. So I believe that's what that's saying. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. See, I believe that's where I am. Am I perfect? Obviously not. Do I make mistakes? Obviously I do. Do I get angry and say things or write things on Facebook that, looking back, I regret? Sure. However, I've greatly decreased that. I don't get into long posting battles anymore. I don't get as guttural as much. I got guttural the other day with some person on Twitter who opened up and on Facebook who attacked me first. I did retaliate. That's true. And I'm working on that, but it has greatly decreased. James 4:4. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? That means in resistance to, in a state of conflict with God. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. You see, that's beautiful. What James says is crystal clear and distinct. What this is saying right here is, if you're a friend of God, if you are with the cross, you are an enemy of the world. If you choose to be a friend to the world and to conform to the world, you are an enemy to God and the cross. Period. James 4:4 sets the stage for what direction you take. I've chosen to be on the side of the cross, ergo, I am an enemy to the world. And I face persecution from my beliefs almost every single day. And I face that right at my ground zero. As I feel I faced this morning. And I am prepared. Well, I believe I'm prepared. We'll see what happens. The ultimate test, if it comes to that, is, well, you either dump your beliefs or you lose your job, or this bullet is going to go into your brain, Michael B., unless you renounce him. Will it ever come to that? I doubt it in my lifetime anyway. I doubt it. I doubt it'll get that far. But if it did, that's the ultimate test. Because I could sit behind this microphone and say, oh, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to say, pull that trigger. Go ahead, screw you. Oh, yeah, it's easy now. But let me see that barrel in my forehead or in the back of or feel it in the back of my skull. That's where the rubber meets the road. But personally, I don't believe it's going to come to that. So I'm going to play the first clip. It is the second CERN clip that I did not get to yesterday. And it's titled, Is CERN About to Bring Back Nimrod as the Antichrist? Now, who is Nimrod? Nimrod is arguably the first totalitarian, despotic ruler mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, after the flood. So let's get into this clip. Excuse the first 12, 13 seconds. It's a musical interlude where they have different writings, but the words will come.
Hi, it's Lindley Oz, and most of you have probably heard about this recent event at CERN involving a mock human sacrifice. Now, I'm going to point out some things from Michael Snyder's article here, as well as another article he did about strange portal-shaped clouds a month ago. And I also have some few interesting things to share with you that are opinionated, but they're certainly interesting. about CERN and the end times and the Antichrist, and also the Antichrist, as spoken of in Daniel, having the power to change the times and the laws. So we're going to take a look at those things. But first, let me just tell you, in case you haven't heard, of this mock human sacrifice. Michael discusses in depth this mock human sacrifice, and he makes some important points in both directions. But first, he starts off mentioning about how
just as a side note, Alex Jones of Infowars.com also exposed human sacrifice, a child, rituals in the forests of California called Bohemian Grove. And if you don't know what Bohemian Grove is, it's kind of like the Bilderberg situation where the elites meet. I don't know if it's once a year or what have you, but they meet and they do pre-Christian Babylonian devil worship, where they do a freedom from care thing, where they put all of their sins, if you will, onto this effigy of a baby in basically like in a cradle of reeds, like similar to what Moses was in, and they shoot it down the river, and it's they free themselves from, I guess, their own pain and guilt, perhaps. So we'll continue with the clip.
Spokeswoman for CERN has told the public this ritual happened without their permission and that they're looking into the matter. Now, I find that strange because I would imagine a place like CERN has some pretty tight security. How would they not know about this? So that's my question. So this occult ritual, if it was indeed some kind of a sick joke, like they're trying to say, what was the motivation? This new video continues a long string of bizarre events related to CERN and the Large Hadron Collider that is housed there. Last month, I wrote about strange portal-shaped clouds that formed over CERN during recent experiments, and the director of research at CERN, physicist Sergio Bertolucci, publicly admitted in the past that the Large Hadron Collider could potentially open up a door to an extra dimension. There has been so much speculation about what is really going on there, and that makes this latest video that much more creepy. So my question also is, and I just mentioned this at the start of this video, what does CERN have to do with end time events, if anything at all? Well, I've got a few ideas of my own. I'm going to share them in a moment. But first, let's take a look at Michael's article about the portal-shaped clouds. Here is Michael's article on the bizarre portal-shaped clouds that formed over CERN during this Awake experiment, which took place around July 4th of this year. You can see a picture right there. There are some major concerns about what the scientists at CERN are doing these days. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, more commonly known as CERN, is purposely smashing particles into one another at astonishingly high speeds. Just last month, the researchers working at the facility began a new experiment called Awake that uses plasma wake fields driven by a proton beam to accelerate charged particles. On June the 24th, pictures of some extremely bizarre portal-shaped cloud formations were taken in the area just above the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Could it be possible that there is some sort of a connection between the new Awake experiment and these strange cloud formations? And precisely what do the researchers hope to awaken anyway? So that's what Michael had to write about these strange cloud formations. Now, there's much more, as you can see, including a video. Some people claim they could see faces in the images when they looked closely enough. Michael said that personally he didn't know what to think about these photographs. But what we do know is that there are scientists all over the planet that are concerned that the strange experiments being conducted at CERN could potentially open up a black hole, destroy the entire world, or open up a portal to another dimension. Okay, so a lot of strange things at CERN. Now, let me share with you a couple of questions more than anything, and I'll show you why I'm asking these questions. We're going to begin with Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. It says, He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and, pay attention to this part, shall intend to change times and law. Then the saint shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time.
Just want to pause that real quick. Aren't we seeing that in our country, the United States of America? Are we not seeing laws passed and then supported by the Supreme Court that are perverted and antichrist in nature? Are we not seeing that today? I believe we are. And I believe that my audience knows this. Also, we see federal judges protecting Muslim militants to continue to come into this country from several of the worst terrorist embedded countries on the planet. We're seeing states like Oregon with this third gender thing on their driver's license being approved. California, forget about it. I could do a week on what California is doing that's disgusting and is antichrist. So you bet. You bet. The elites have circumvented and penetrated every facet of government throughout the world to the point where they can be naked and open about it now. They don't have to be covert any longer. They can just shove it right in our faces and basically say, what are you going to do about it? And if you show enough resistance, you're done. Citizens, you're done. Christians, you're done. So, what this lady is saying, yeah, we are seeing the fulfillment of Daniel. We're seeing that right now. And one could say, well, yeah, well, that happened historically, Mike. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire. Right. But the Roman Empire was created out of perversion. Was it not? They were pagans. They bathed in homosexuality, bestiality, the Greeks, all of that. However, as I've stated in the past, two nations were consecrated to Jehovah. The ancient kingdom of Israel that was unified, officially unified under Solomon, and then the United States of America. When George Washington was sworn in as president, he went to St. Paul's Church, which still exists today in New York City, because New York City was the capital of the United States then, right across the street from 9/11, and consecrated the United States of America to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ. Israel fell because Solomon he was warned by God, do not marry foreign wives outside of Israel, outside of the Hebrew faith. Do not adopt their pagan ways, or you will suffer the consequences. And what happened to Solomon was he was spared direct punishment, but his sons got it. Two of his sons fought in a civil war and divided the nation of Israel, never to be united again until 1948. But it's not even the Israel. Gaza belongs to Israel. The West Bank should belong to Israel. All of that stuff. They still have the Dome of the Rock, the biggest mosque, I guess, in Jerusalem. It's compromised. And the United States of America is going right down that path, adopting New Age, unnatural, Antichrist ideologies, and look at it. Look at the state of this country. Are you going to tell me the United States is better in 2017 than in 1957? I don't think so. You're going to tell me the American family in 2017 looks better than what it looked like in 1957? I don't think so. Are you going to tell me our society looks better in 2017 than in 1957? I don't think so. Are you going to tell me this nation is happier as a whole in 2017 as it was in 1957? I don't think so. Let's continue on with the clip.
So, a couple of questions. First of all, it says here that he shall intend to change times. That he they're speaking of is the Antichrist. So, could CERN possibly be used, or is it already being used, to change time? Now, there's something interesting called the Mandela effect, and it has to do with changing times. There used to be a show called Sliders, and it dealt specifically with this exact thing to do with different dimensions all on the same Earth, or different Earths in different places. The Mandela effect is what happens when someone has a clear memory of something that never happened in this reality. Many of us, mostly total strangers, remember the exact same events with the same exact details. However, our memories are different from what is in history, books, newspaper archives, and so on. This isn't a conspiracy, and we're not talking about false memories. Many of us speculate that parallel realities exist, and we've been sliding between them without realizing it. Okay. So, could CERN be having something to do with altering time? There's an article here. I don't understand the article that well, but I'm just showing it to you to reveal that people are asking the same question. 2019 CERN and the Mandela effect. Are they attempting to change time? Daniel 7:25, as I just shared with you, specifically talks about the Antichrist changing the times. Now let's look at something else. The Tower of Babel and Nimrod. Well, we know that Nimrod is an Antichrist, and the New Agers and elitists are watching for Nimrod to raise from the dead or to return and take his throne. Interesting. That sounds a lot like the Antichrist we're looking to appear at any given moment. Now, another interesting thing, and I mentioned this in a previous video some time ago, that Babel actually means gateway of the gods or gate of the gods. So Nimrod, who had oversaw this whole construction of the Tower of Babel, the Antichrist, and Babel meaning gate of the gods, and the New Agers and elitists, as I said, are looking for Nimrod to return and take his throne as a form of a Messiah, which would be our Antichrist. So here's my question. Will CERN be used to bring back Nimrod as the Antichrist? If they're able to go into other dimensions and times and change time and open up portals, are they going to go back to another time and bring Nimrod to this time? Wouldn't something like this account for all these strange sacrificial satanic dances and activities at CERN and this mock human?
Not only at CERN, just look at your TVs, folks. Look at your movies. Look at your music. Look at the music videos on MTV. It's all demonic ritual. It's all Freemason, Illuminati references the most gross perversion that in the 1980s wouldn't even make it onto MTV. They would be on a porn cartridge. Your what you call it. It's not your DVD players. Look, this is how bad it is. Your VCRs. That'd be on a VCR tape in a porn movie in the 1980s. What we're seeing. And just, my wife and I were looking for a movie the other day. And finally we picked The Shack, which is ironic because my church is doing a series, a Bible study series on The Shack, which I'll be going to tonight. Every movie, war, death, killing, demonic, evil spirits, all of it. The comedies suck. The melodramas suck. It's all devil worship, gore, blood, and war. No accident, folks. It's called conditioning. They pummel you with all of this devil worship and all of this death and killing and bloodlust to normalize it in your brain. Well, that's just the way it is. Hey, these are the times we're living in. It's cool. It's ho-hum. That's how people are getting about, Islamic attacks. Oh, another one. We have a Muslim mayor in London. We have a newly elected president who's just a New World Order stooge in France. Just get used to it, folks. It's just part of life. Oh, but when some white guy, though, in frustration, watching his country die, plows into a group of Muslim worshippers, it's the most terrific act of terrorism I've ever seen in my life. Oh, my God, it's terrible. Meanwhile, people get blown up at a pop concert. Meh. Just get used to it, folks. Just part of everyday living now. That's how they're pummeling our brains. Through the media. And in the Communist Manifesto of 1963, brought to America, take over and infiltrate the schools and the media and just pummel the masses with perversion and unnatural forms of life, politically, sexually, and spiritually. Pummel, pummel, pummel to create a new normal, right? We hear that all the time. This is the new normal. This is the new American way of life. Evolve with it. Accept it. Come into the false light of the light bearer. Come in. Come and join us. Don't be on the outside. Don't be a caveman. Don't get left behind. This is the future. Come. Come and accept. No, thank you. I would rather bathe in my so-called ignorance and my so-called lack of understanding than swim in the fountains of perversity and antichrist energy. I'll stay over here. I'll swim in the tiny river of yesterday, if you will, than swim in the polluted, choked out ocean of today and tomorrow. No, thank you. So, these demonic rituals seem to be everywhere. We're engulfed in it. And I refuse to conform to this world. We continue.
Sacrifice which took place, as well as other things. I mean, even Michael wrote that they basically admitted to opening up portals. Michael wrote right here. And the director of research at CERN, physicist Sergio Bertolucci, has publicly admitted in the past that the Large Hadron Collider could potentially open up a door to an extra dimension. So, it seems like a reasonable question. With all the sacrificial type stuff going on, that would make sense that they were using CERN to bring something which has been to reality again. And the elitist and Satanist and Luciferians and all these people and New Agers, they're all looking for Nimrod to come and take his seat on the throne as their savior or Messiah. So this to me is an interesting question, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It sounds really crazy, but this is all pretty crazy to begin with, to be quite honest. It's just speculation on my part. It's an interesting question. I'm wondering, how will CERN be used to fulfill end times Bible prophecy? And these are just two of the questions that popped into my head, and I wanted to share them. Now, Chuck Missler raises a very interesting question in a story called The Return of Nimrod. Let me go down here to the bottom of the article. It says, the first world dictator was Nimrod, whose name means we rebel, who ruled from Babylon. It is interesting that Micah also refers to the...
You might as well just say that Nimrod was definitely another form of Satan on earth. As I talked about yesterday, the book of Job, Satan, even after he fell from being a prized archangel, he was still welcomed into the court of Jehovah and the other heavenly angels. And I talked about how Job was persecuted as a test. And what that means really, it's all of us. We are Job. And what I left out was, God asked Satan, where have you been? Where do you come from? As he entered the court. Oh, I've been roving the earth. And that happened twice. To me, I take that as meaning as Satan comes in and out. And he did, right? He tempted Christ in the desert. Talked about that yesterday. And how he owns the kingdoms of the earth. And the world lies in the power of the wicked one. So Satan can take many forms. So it's no accident, and I told you that names have meanings. They're symbolisms of characteristics. Talked about your last name, goldsmith, blacksmith, carpenter. They're characteristics. So it is no surprise that Nimrod means resistor. Well, so that's what Satan means too. It means to rebel. Resistor, rebel, father of the lie, all of that. So there is no coincidence here that Nimrod has the same name. We could go as far as to say Satan took on human form, perhaps. Or this is just an allegory for that. He took the form of an earthly, despotic ruler. We continue.
This land of Nimrod, and his passage quoted above in that verse is, and this one shall be the peace when the Assyrian shall come into our land, and when he shall tread in our places, then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. And they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod and the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. Could it be that this final world dictator will be, in some sense, a return of Nimrod? This may add an additional dimension to the mystery surrounding the future of Babylon. Is it just used as a symbol, or will Babylon literally rise to prominence?
Now, many theologians, and the Jehovah's Witnesses especially, when you read Babylon in the Bible, and Babylon was a literal place in Mesopotamia, which is now modern-day Iraq. Babylon is now the symbol of world governments. And the whore of Babylon is the church, the establishment church, which has morphed from just being the Church of Rome, we know as the Roman Catholic Church. Now there are so many divisions in Christianity, we now can say the whore of Babylon is the establishment of Christendom. All of the major churches. Well, all is an absolute. Let me say this. The vast majority of the establishment churches have been compromised, and we're going to go into that later in the show. This is going to be a long show because I don't want to do part 3 tomorrow. I think it's too long. So we're going to go all the way today until we finish. So Babylon is now meaning the world governments. And is it possible to have an ultimate despotic ruler over the entire planet? Is it possible? Well, we're already seeing, as I've established, the European Union, which is headquartered in Belgium, and this Juncker guy that Alex Jones has talked about, he's the head of the EU, and basically all the nation states that are involved in the EU, their leaders, presidents, prime ministers, premiers, no, they're not. Same thing when they were under the Soviet Union. The Kremlin was the boss. These guys are just lieutenants now. President of France, Prime Minister of England. They're lieutenants. The earthly general in that sector is the European Union head. Can the United States fall into that? Well, we almost did with the TPP. That definitely would have put the United States under that umbrella, because whatever the TPP ruled in their tribunal, they usurp our Constitution. And the United States is pushing the United Nations is pushing for universal gun control. They're pushing for a universal wage. And we, the United States of America, should we bow to that, would then be under that umbrella. The ultimate goal is to create, or dismantle rather, all individual sovereignty at the country, state, and personal level. Wipe it all out and be ruled by one ultimate body. So, can it happen? I think it could. I don't think it will, but we're close. We see the formation of that. So can this either literal or allegoric Nimrod appear? Yes. Certainly, that's the agenda. Absolutely. Which is why I really refer to the New World Order as the One World Order, because that's what they want. They want a one world order. An ultimate ruler on earth, a limited board of governors comprised of the world elites, the select politicians, and the richest, most corrupt families in the world, and then the rest of us in mud. That's the goal. And that's the triangle. That's the pyramid, folks. And the capstone, which is incomplete on your dollar bill, the capstone is that world despotic ruler. And we are at the widest point of that pyramid. We're the bottom. We're the bottom feeders. We're the scum. And most of us will be replaced by the technocracy of the machines. And what's left over is a poor slave class to just blindly do the bidding of the capstone. That's what that is. That is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate agenda. You know, it is 10:57. Wow. There will be a part 3 tomorrow. I can't go an hour and a half, 2 hours. Too much. And it's too much for you people. You'll lose interest. So, I'm going to finish this off, conclude the show. I got enough material. We will do a part 3. So let's wrap up this clip.
On the banks of the Euphrates once again. Isaiah and Jeremiah clearly describe a destruction of Babylon that has never happened yet. Zechariah seems to hold the key. So this is an interesting article. Again, it's an alternative view, the return of Nimrod. Make sure that you check it out. It goes into some great detail, and I believe that that's possibly what could be happening with CERN. They're trying to bring back Nimrod. Just a question, but an interesting one at that. Certainly very interesting times that we are living in. Let's just keep our eyes open, be prayerful, stay close to Christ, give up your evil ways and return to the Lord, repent, and be righteous and be holy, because the Bible tells us to be holy because our God that we serve is holy. So that's it for now, but let's just keep our eyes on this and see what happens. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.
You know, I know that a dark picture has been painted here. And I know it looks pretty grim, but you ladies and gentlemen, you can be the rainbow in the dark. My name is Michael B., and this is The Truth Zone. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m.
Dancing in the light. just the rain.